Hey, what's going on today, guys? This video is another reminder on why you need to keep doing your main thing even when you feel like quitting. So this is just me being transparent about the journey, just trying to document things as I go, and I'm learning how to create more content and make videos and all this. But there is going to be a point at some point in whatever you're doing, whatever that main thing pursuit is that you're doing, where the thought of quitting will enter your mind. This is completely normal. This is a feature, not a bug. So what does this mean? It means it is part of learning something new and getting good at something. It is not abnormal or uncommon that you are feeling this type of way. Anything worth pursuing is going to be difficult. You're going to experience the Dunning-Kruger effect. So if you're not sure what this is, it's essentially confidence on the y-axis and competence on the x-axis. So when you start something, you're at the peak. This is where you know the least amount, right? Peak of Mount Stupid, let's call it. But then very quickly you realize how difficult the thing is, right? So then you're going to go all the way down. So you're going to go down to informed pessimism, and then you're going to reach that valley of despair. So this is the point where you're doing something long enough and you start to realize, some things that may not be as good about something. There's some things that are more boring that you have to do, and things you don't like as much. Nothing you choose to do, you're going to 100% love everything about it, right? This is completely unrealistic for 99.999% of people. And if it's unrealistic for that percentage, why would you base your decision of what you want to do on such slim odds? It's like saying, I'm going to win the lottery for my income or how I'm going to make a living, right? Like, it's just a bad strategy. So you get to this valley of despair. For different people, it takes different amount of time to get here. Usually within the first maybe like 20 to 100 hours of doing something, you'll get to the bottom and realize how hard it's actually going to be to get where you want to go. But you keep pushing through, you keep putting your head down, getting to work, even when you don't know if things are going to work out. And then the next step is going to be informed optimism. You're getting closer, you're getting better, you're starting to see the cracks in the matrix, or the cracks, like how you can like figure out how to make it work, right? How to get really good at it and be able to accomplish, some of your initial goals going into it. And then obviously the next step is like success and fulfillment. It all works out great. But if you're at that part, you're probably not watching this video, right? You're probably at one of the first three, which is you're either just starting off your main thing, which if that's the case, great, just keep doing, keep learning. And you're eventually going to get to the next two, which is informed pessimism. We start to realize some things that aren't that good. And then the valley of despair, when you kind of hit rock bottom with something and you're going to want to quit. And this is where, you're going to spend most of the time. This is the middle chapter, so to speak. Not the start of the race when everyone's cheering for you, or the end of the race when everyone's cheering for you. This is the start, the uninformed optimism, or, Mount Stupid. Like, you don't see all the bad things for it. You just see the things that people are either selling you online for why to do something, or why it's so great, right? And then the top part, everything works out, success, fulfillment. Obviously, that's great as well. You don't need help at those points. It's the middle part, that slope, where people have the hardest time progress, right? So what inevitably happens for majority of people is you get to the valley of despair, and you're like, okay, well, this is hard, this sucks. Now I know the things I don't like about this. I'm just going to pick something else. And this is referred to as shiny object syndrome as well, where you're constantly just restarting the cycle of the first three steps. Or Mount Stupid, you don't know any of the downside of whatever you're trying to do as your main thing. Or informed pessimism, where now you're starting to realize some things you don't like. And the valley of despair, when things are hard, you're at rock bottom. And if you keep switching things, you're going to inevitably just keep going through those three cycles over and over again. Which it's why, the majority of the gains are made by pushing through this valley of despair, which is often the longest time, right? The rewards and the gain in life for whatever you want is often rewarded in greater distribution to people who are disproportionately good at whatever it is they do, right? Let's take professional sports, for instance, for basketball. If you're one of the top 500 best basketball players in the world, you are paid exponentially more than, the 1,000th or the 2,000th best basketball player in the world. And obviously this makes sense if you think about it. The rewards are distributed to the top percentage of people. But we often kind of misconstrue or don't realize how rare, how nuanced you have to be, or how good you have to get at something to be in that percentage, right? So let's do a quick calculation here. So how many people are in the NBA? So yeah, almost spot on. There's like 450 to 560 players in the NBA at any time, with, the average being about 500. Now let's see how many people are in the world, right? How many people are alive right now? So we have 8.3 billion people alive. So now let's do the math. How rare of a person do you actually need to be in the NBA? So we take 500 people divided by 8.3 billion. So to be in the NBA, you don't have to be the top 1%. You don't even have to be the top 1% of the 1%. You have to be 0.000006% of people, which is the equivalent to 0.006% of 1%. So what's the point I'm trying to get at here? To do most things you want, you're going to have to be so much rarer of an individual than you initially think going into it. 500 people at any given moment, right? So the equivalent statistically to this is you have to be at 1 in 15 million people to be in the NBA, right? And like we discussed earlier, if you are the 1,000th best basketball player in the world, you do not get paid anywhere close to what the 500th best basketball player in the world makes. And sure, you could always get better and become the top 500, right? That is the whole point of training, getting better. You're not just like fixed in your position, right? Terrible mindset to have. But this is just to put in perspective of how much work actually goes into where you want to be. That valley of despair. Most kids, me included, when you're growing up, maybe you want to be some type of professional athlete, right? I want to be a professional soccer player when I grew up. That was my goal, but, got injured a bunch of times, didn't work out for me. Similar statistics. You have to be much more rare than you initially think going into something. Which means that time in the valley of despair to get informed, optimism and then success is going to be much greater as a byproduct. Now, every single person who's in these top percentages, I guarantee at some point, they've questioned, will it work for them? Is this worth my time? Is it worth all the investment, the pain, the suffering, working on things when it's inconvenient for you? Because a lot of the times it is going to be inconvenient. Kobe Bryant was working out at like 3:30, 4 in the morning before everyone would do like 3 to 4 practices a day. You think that was convenient? Obviously not. That took up his entire life, right, to be able to get to that level of greatness. And I'm not saying that should be your goal. That's completely unreasonable for 99.99999% of you guys, right? Because that's just the statistical probability of you actually doing it. But the NBA is an extreme example. For most things, the competition could be a little less, depending what it is, could be greater. Yeah, even for me, I'm on video like 38. My goal is to make 365 videos this year. Invested this money into, my setup, doing all this stuff, different apps for editing. But the reality is, whatever you pick, make sure you're willing to stick with it, because it's probably going to take 5 to 10 years to really get really good at something and get in that top percentile where the disproportionate gains and rewards are for whatever it is you choose. You can get better than 80% of people within the first 20 hours, because most people aren't really trying that hard. Most people take years to start something, when in reality it takes only 20 hours to get, relatively competent at something. But you can't settle for that 20%, because you realize when you're at that valley of despair how much farther you need to go to get where you want. You may just think, well, I'm just 19% away from top 1%. But for most things, the 1% is not necessarily where you need to be to accomplish your goal. A lot of times it's going to be more rare depending on how extreme your goal is and how much are you willing to sacrifice, which is an interesting concept in itself. What does that mean, to sacrifice for your goals, for what you want? I guess it could just mean anything else other than something that's adding towards or getting you closer to your goal, by definition taking away from it. So I guess these are the sacrifices you make. Anything that's not the goal, technically a sacrifice to the goal. But there's this quote I heard online, I forgot who said it, but whatever you aren't willing to sacrifice inevitably becomes the sacrifice you make. You have to sacrifice for what you want now, what you want most. That's what most people don't realize. You're making a sacrifice either way. By doing the thing, by not doing the thing. If you don't do it, you're sacrificing getting the thing that you want, your main thing, your goal, whatever it is you want to achieve. By doing it, you're sacrificing other things, more of the comfort, the pleasure, the hedonic treadmill of desires that could be keeping you away from getting where you want to go. This reminds me of a story. You can be two types of people. There's one person sitting on a beach with a margarita in his hand for every single day for the rest of his life. He has everything he wants. And then there's the other person who's working every day towards something he's building, getting his fulfillment from following his purpose of helping people to do that. So which one do you want to choose? What are you optimizing for? The hedonic, hedonistic pleasure seeking of just getting whatever you want, or the purpose of building something greater than yourself? So I don't know, whenever I think of quitting, I just try to refocus on why I'm doing it and just understand that I've made a commitment to do this for much longer than I've done it. You can just minimize the work you've done right now and just commit to doing something for a very long time, and there's just no other option. You're just going to do it. You probably will succeed eventually, right? Charlie Munger says if you do everything else wrong, but if you're just committed, you're just consistent, right? You don't stop. You just keep doing it every single day. You can do everything else wrong and still succeed, which just shows how potent being consistent is for achieving what you want. But what is it that you want? And is it worth suffering for? Well, what some people say, life is suffering. You're going to suffer either way, either in the pursuit of something you want or in the comfort of doing what you know. That being said, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Love you guys. And remember, take consistent action on your main thing, even when you don't feel like it. There will be hard days. There will be moments where you want to quit. But remember, you got this. Don't stop. Peace.